Welcome to the deep dive. Look, in today's cloud-native world especially, when you're deep in Kubernetes, getting swamped by information isn't just likely, it's pretty much guaranteed. Your apps, your systems, they're all just generating this constant stream of data. And trying to find, the important signals in that massive flood of logs, it feels like looking for a needle in a stack of needles. So, our mission today, cut through that noise. This deep dive is basically your shortcut to getting your head around the key tools, Fluentd, Loki, the EFK Stack. The ones that help turn all that raw log data into something, well, actually useful. We're digging into the source material you shared, hoping to find those aha moments, those practical bits of wisdom. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. What is logging in Kubernetes? Really, why is it so fundamental? I mean, it's about collecting, right? And aggregating, analyzing data from pods, nodes, apps. It's how you keep tabs on health, fix things when they break, and just, understand what's actually happening in your cluster. But why is it so critical here?
What's truly fascinating, I think, isn't just the amount of log data Kubernetes clusters generate, which is huge. It's how spread out it all is. You've got maybe hundreds, thousands of pods spinning up, spinning down, moving across nodes. The old ways of logging just totally break down. You can't just swash into a server and tail a file anymore. It doesn't work like that. So this sheer volume, plus the fact that it's all distributed and changing constantly, it makes good log management absolutely essential, not just for fixing problems, but for keeping the lights on and really knowing what your system's doing.
Right. You definitely can't do that manually. Just impossible. And that's exactly where these tools come in. Our big three today, Fluentd, Loki, and the EFK Stack. Can you give us the quick high level on each one? What makes them different?
Absolutely. So think of Fluent first. It's basically your universal data plumber. It's open source, super flexible. It gathers logs from almost anywhere, does stuff to them like filtering, changing formats, adding info, and then sends them off reliably wherever they need to go.
Okay, the plumber. I like that.
Yeah. Then there's Loki. Now, Loki's really interesting because its whole approach is different. It indexes metadata labels like, namespace, pod name, app version, not the log content itself.
Yeah.
And that design choice, it means it can be incredibly efficient on storage and super fast for queries if you know the label you're after, which is great for these really dynamic, high-volume places. But you gotta understand its limits too, right? If you need to search for any old random string, it's not like Elasticsearch.
Okay, so label-focused, efficient.
Ooh.
Got it, and EFK.
And EFK, yeah. That's the classic sort of full-featured stack. E is for Elasticsearch, powerful storage, great full-text search. F is Fluentd, doing the collecting like we said. And K is Kibana for visualization, dashboards, making sense of it all. It's a whole platform.
Right.
So to make it maybe even simpler, imagine logging is like keeping a diary for your whole Kubernetes cluster. Every little thing that happens. Fluentd, that's like your super organized librarian. Goes around, collects all the diary entries, the logs from every single pod, every node. Loki is like a really smart digital notebook. Stores the entries efficiently, maybe tags them by chapter or topic. Those are the labels, so you can quickly flip to the right section when you need something specific.
Makes sense.
And the EFK stack, that's the whole library system. Fluentd brings in the books. Elasticsearch is the massive searchable archive where everything's stored and indexed. And Kibana is the interactive display, letting you see trends, patterns, everything visually.
That library analogy really helps clarify the roles.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's make this practical. How are teams actually using these tools day to day? Give us some examples.
Sure. So imagine a team with a complicated microservices app. They might run Fluentd as a daemon set, one on each Kubernetes node. It automatically picks up logs from all the containers running their web app pods. Fluentd could then, say, parse these logs, turn them into structured JSON, maybe add the Kubernetes pod name and namespace automatically, and then shoot them off to their storage.
Okay, so collection and adding context. Then what?
Well, for debugging, maybe a developer uses Loki with Grafana. They could quickly pull up all logs from just the checkout service namespace that contain the words payment error. Boom. Finds the relevant errors instantly without digging through gigabytes of unrelated stuff.
Nice. Fast and targeted.
Exactly. And then for the bigger picture, maybe the site reliability engineering team uses the EFK stack. They build Kibana dashboards showing error rates across the whole cluster. They might spot a weird spike in errors from one service or see resource usage climbing unexpectedly, or even trace a single customer request all the way through multiple services to find a bottleneck. It helps them catch things early, maybe even before users notice.
Yeah, you can really see how these move from just being like log files to actual operational tools. It feels like they're not just optional anymore, are they? Especially in Kubernetes.
No, absolutely not. They're a necessity. And when you think about why they're so critical, it boils down to a few key things. First, just centralized log management. Getting logs from potentially hundreds of pods and nodes into one place. You have to do that. Trying to check logs individually is, well, it's impossible at scale. These tools automate that.
Right. Table stakes, basically.
Pretty much. Second, efficient storage and querying. This is where Loki really shines, like we talked about. Indexing just the labels saves a ton on storage costs and makes those common operational queries, show me errors from this app, incredibly fast. That's huge when you're dealing with massive log volumes and need answers quickly.
And cost is always a factor.
Always. Then powerful visualization,
Yeah.
especially with Kibana and the EFK Stack, turning lines of text into graphs, charts, dashboards that lets humans actually see patterns, spot anomalies, understand trends instantly. It's about getting insights, not just data.
Seeing the forest for the trees.
Exactly. And then there's scalability. These systems are built to handle huge amounts of data from big, busy clusters without falling over. They grow with you. And finally, maybe most importantly for day-to-day ops, troubleshooting and compliance. You need logs to figure out why a pod crashed. You need logs to prove you met security or audit requirements. Good logging is your ground truth, your evidence.
Okay, it's pretty compelling. It almost sounds like you'd be flying blind without them.
Eh.
What's the actual pain like if a team tries to skip setting up proper logging?
Oh, it's painful. Without a centralized system, you're back to manual collection. Kubecta logs, pod to XYZ, Kubecta logs, pod ABC, over and over. It just doesn't scale. It's slow, it's tedious, it's error-prone. And the biggest impact, delayed issue detection. Something could be broken, quietly failing, maybe losing data or impacting users for hours, days even, before someone manually stumbles upon it in the logs. Yeah, troubleshooting takes way longer. Finding the root cause becomes a massive headache. And meeting any kind of audit or compliance, forget it, you just don't have the records. The real cost is longer downtime, unhappy users, and just not knowing what's going on in your own systems.
Let's bring back that e-commerce example. How does this play out there? Customer hits an error at checkout. What happens with these tools versus without?
Right. So with the tools, customer complains. The team immediately checks. Fluent has been collecting everything, user clicks, API calls, payment service logs, database queries, all centralized. And SRE jumps into Grafana, queries Loki using labels like service payment and maybe error code timeout. Instantly gets logs related to recent payment timeouts. Simultaneously, someone else might be looking at a Kibana dashboard if they're using EFK. They see a spike in errors specifically from the checkout service starting around the time the customer had trouble. They correlate the findings. They identify maybe a specific back-end component failing, push a fix, and monitor the dashboards to see the error rate drop back to normal. Problem identified and resolved, maybe in minutes.
And without the tools?
Without them.
Yeah.
Chaos. Someone tries Kubecta, logs on a few pods, maybe finds nothing obvious. They guess which service might be involved. More Kubecta logs. Maybe they check server metrics, but don't see anything alarming. Hours pass. Customers keep failing. Eventually, maybe, someone finds the needle in the haystack. Or maybe they just roll back the latest deploy and hope for the best. It's slow, stressful, and unreliable.
Yeah, the difference is stark. Okay, so we understand the why. Let's get into the how a bit more. How do these tools actually work together, or even independently, the whole life cycle? Collection, storage, analysis.
Right. So the basic flow usually starts with collection. And Fluent is often the workhorse here. You typically run it as a daemon set that just means one Fluent pod runs on each node in your cluster. This lets it efficiently grab logs directly from the container runtime, the thing actually running your containers, like containered or CRIO.
Okay, so it's right there on the node, grabbing the raw output.
Exactly. But it doesn't just blindly forward text. Fluent has powerful plugins. It can parse unstructured logs like messy application output and turn them into structured data like JSON. Crucially, it can also enrich these logs. It talks to the Kubernetes API and adds context like the pod's name, its labels, the namespace it's in. This metadata is gold later on. Then it buffers the logs and sends them reliably to your chosen storage backend.
That enrichment sounds key, making the logs searchable, right? So when those logs land in, say, Loki, how does that label-based storage actually help with querying?
Precisely. So Fluent, or maybe another agent like Promtail, which is often used with Loki, sends the logs over. Loki stores the log line itself pretty much raw, but it keeps that metadata, the labels closely associated. It then builds indexes only on those labels. App front-end, namespace production, whatever Fluent added or was configured. So when you query in Grafana, you start by filtering on those labels. Show me logs where app front-end and namespace production. Because the index is just on the labels, not terabytes of log text, this initial filtering is super, super fast.
Okay, so you narrow it down by labels first.
Right. Then, after you've selected the relevant log streams using labels, you can do some limited searching within those specific streams if needed, like for certain keywords. But it's not designed for arbitrary full-text search across everything like, say, Elasticsearch is. It's optimized for that label-first operational workflow.
That makes the trade-off really clear. Efficiency for common queries versus universal searchability. So what about the EFK stack then? How does that whole system hang together?
So with EFK, Fluent still does the heavy lifting for collection and maybe some initial parsing and enrichment, just like before. But instead of sending logs to Loki, it sends them to Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is a beast. It's a distributed search and analytics engine. It takes those structured logs, indexes them thoroughly, including the full text content, and stores them in a way that's highly scalable and optimized for complex searches.
That's where you get the powerful search anything capability.
Exactly. You can search for any word, any phrase across potentially huge amounts of log data. Then Kibana connects directly to Elasticsearch. Kibana is the web UI. It lets you explore the data in Elasticsearch, build really sophisticated dashboards, visualize trends over time, create complex queries. It's incredibly powerful for deep analysis, historical exploration, finding those unknown unknowns.
But it sounds like it might be more complex to run, more resources maybe.
Generally, yes. Elasticsearch itself is a complex, distributed system. It requires more resources, CPU, memory, disk, and more operational expertise to run and scale effectively compared to Loki. So EFK is often found in larger orgs or teams with really diverse or complex logging needs and maybe dedicated people to manage it. Loki often appeals for its relative simplicity and lower resource footprint, especially if the label-based querying fits your main use cases.
Right, different tools for different needs and scales. You mentioned Fluent grabbing Kubernetes metadata. How deep does that integration go for all these tools?
It's pretty fundamental. Fluent talking to the Kube API to get pod names, namespaces, labels, annotations, that's standard practice. It makes the logs so much more useful than just raw container output. Loki, as we said, is built around leveraging those Kubernetes labels for its indexing and querying model. It fits the Kubernetes way of identifying things very naturally. And with EFK, while Elasticsearch itself isn't Kubernetes native, the combination relies heavily on Fluent's ability to inject all that rich Kubernetes context into the logs before they even get to Elasticsearch. Kibana then lets you filter, aggregate, and visualize based on that metadata, show me errors per deployment, logs per namespace, etc.
That context really is everything.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about the endpoint, monitoring and troubleshooting. How do teams really use Grafana with Loki or Kibana with EFK day to day to find problems?
Yeah, this is where it all pays off. The rubber meets the road. Teams are constantly in Grafana or Kibana. They're searching logs, filtering down, show me only logs with error level, show me logs from this specific service, find all logs containing this transaction ID. Critically, they also set up alerts. You don't want to stare at dashboards all day. You configure alerts based on log queries. Alert me if the rate of 500 errors from the payment service exceeds X per minute, or alert me if we see database connection refused more than Y times.
Proactive notification.
Exactly. So the system tells you when something's wrong. I remember one time we pushed a bad config change late at night. Kibana dashboards immediately lit up, showing a massive spike in API errors for one specific endpoint. We caught it within minutes thanks to the visualization, rolled back, crisis averted. Without that visual cue, we might not have known until morning or until users started complaining loudly. These tools turn log data from a passive record into an active monitoring and diagnostic system.
Makes perfect sense.
So just to quickly recap the core bits. Fluent is your flexible collector, grabbing logs and adding context. Loki offers lightweight, label-based storage, great with Grafana for fast, common queries. EFK Stack is the full powerhouse. Fluent, Elasticsearch for deep search, and Kibana for rich visualization. And Kubernetes metadata is the glue that makes it all context-aware.
That's a great summary.
Yeah.
And if we were to give someone that final, simple way to think about it all, or a core analogy.
Right. Think of Fluent, Loki, and EFK as your specialized logging team for your Kubernetes cluster. Fluent is the agent out in the field, diligently gathering every log message from every pod. Loki is the super efficient archivist, filing things away based on key labels so you can find specific operational details incredibly quickly. And the EFK stack, that's your central intelligence hub. Elasticsearch is the vast searchable library, and Kibana is the interactive command center, giving you the full picture, deep insights, historical trends. They all work together, or sometimes Loki works more independently to help you track what's going on, fix things fast, and just generally keep your cluster healthy and understood.
Perfect. Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today, journeying through this sometimes complex world of Kubernetes logging. From just grasping the sheer amount of data to seeing how Fluent, Loki, and the EFK Stack each play their part in making sense of it all, it really underscores how vital these tools are for turning that raw noise into insights you can actually use.
Absolutely. And maybe thinking about all this raises the final question for you, the listener. As these cloud-native systems like Kubernetes just keep getting more dynamic, more complex, what do you think are the next big challenges or maybe opportunities for logging and observability? With things like AI ops becoming more real or the ongoing shift towards serverless. Where does logging go next? Something to think about.